So after digging around some and looking, I'm of course going to play more with the Apple II we restored. I picked this little card up on eBay. It's a 2-drive controller card. Guy claimed he had a bunch of them. They were nearly all sold out and that they all, quote, worked. I was a little disappointed when I received it, and this probably won't show up on camera, but there's a jumper wire here, a jumper wire here. A trace has been replaced here with a piece of stiff wire. Another piece of stiff wire down here replacing a trace. This card has certainly been reworked. I don't know, and I don't know if like these wires are factory. I just don't know. So it was $15 or $10 shipping, $25. I think this was probably not a great deal, although it does have the 2 proms on it, which might be useful. I then on eBay picked this guy up, got him for $10 with $15 shipping, and it was one of those where the bidding started at 10 and nobody bid against me, so I was happy to pick this up on eBay as well. Then we can move on to this weekend. So I've just gotten home a little while ago from running around to recyclers, etc., and trying to find stuff, and this is what I found. So came up with a super serial card with the connector for $2. So can't complain about that at all. That's quite a deal for $2. Came up with a second super serial card, again for $2. Very nice. Picked up another floppy controller, the Just 2 interface card. Again, it was a whole $2. This doesn't have the rework stuff on the back, which makes me happy. This looks a lot more correct to me. So I have more faith that this might be a good controller. Keep digging here. I picked up what I believe to be the Unidisc, I think it is, I/O controller. I think this is for floppy controller, only it's the later generation with the, I think it's 17-pin DB connector. Again, a whole $2. I couldn't pass it up for $2. Yet another super serial I/O card. Again, in a box of cards for $2. I just couldn't say no. They were so damn cheap. Yet another of the again, what I believe to be the Super I/O, the Unidisc, the Duo Disc, whatever they're called, controllers. Just based on the what I've seen in pictures, it's definitely a different model, and I think what I've read says the one with the big chip here is special in some way. It's an Apple 3.5-inch disk drive interface card. I'm sure this one is as well. It just says I/O controller. So maybe this is actually something different. I don't know. But again, every card that was in the box I took. Yet another floppy controller. Again, it doesn't have the jumpers and the weird rework and the mess on the back where it was repaired, so I'm really happy with that. Sorry, I'm digging around in the bigger box of stuff. There's a card in here I thought that I'm not seeing. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7. I thought I had an 8th card, but I guess I didn't. It was a mouse card with a DB9 connector on it, but apparently not. So, well, that is what it is. This was laying in a box of junk. It's for DOS and not Pro DOS, I believe. But I couldn't leave it there, so I grabbed it. I have some Pro DOS bootable media coming that I ordered off eBay. So let me set all these aside, and we'll keep digging into what I picked up. Another disc 2, looks to be in reasonable shape, though it's really dirty. Another disc 2, again really dirty. Two more disc 2s. They're a little cleaner. I'm going to cut this tie off of here just because they are tied together. I like the fact this one has the ribbon cable. It just, you know, it speaks older Apple to me with the colored ribbon cable. I got the drives for $10 a drive, so I cannot complain about that at all. So I've ended up with 5 drives, 3 controller cards, the Super I/O or the Super Serial card, etc. And I am under $100 into all of this. Because this was all found locally, there was no shipping. So happy with that. So I think what I'm going to do is move on to opening each drive up, taking a look inside, seeing if any work needs to be done. I've read a couple different service manuals for these drives, gone through them. The interesting tidbit in that to me was where it said do not lubricate the slides for the head. That seems a little unusual to me, but I found that in both of the manuals. There was a really old manual and a newer one, so I guess I will respect that. But you know, it's amazing to go from nothing Apple to getting that Apple II Plus running to now having this, you know, mess of hardware laying around me. So there's a missing screw on this one. It may have been opened up previously, or just the screw has worked loose. But I thought on camera we'd open each one of these up, take a look inside, look for obvious signs of damage, etc., and kind of go from there, which way it slides out. So I did read the manual. I don't remember specific teardown stuff. Dirty inside, no surprise. I have read someplace that if you get the drive cable on backwards, it'll blow one of the chips on here up. Whether that chip has actually failed or not, I don't know. Get you to unclip. There you go. I want you to pull off a couple of nice big ferrites on there. The cable coming up from the head. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull the card off. Take a look down at the heads. Probably grab some alcohol and Q-tips and clean them. Well, the head. These should be single-sided drives. There's really nothing there to knock out of alignment or anything. The head actually looks reasonably clean. It seems to step okay. I'm not finding anything obviously incorrect. I you know, having read up on Apple floppy and how this was all put together and done, and the fact that there's no sector hole reader here, you know, there's no micro switch or whatever to say we're at track 0, although see, it's interesting, little brackets there to break the opto that we're at track 0, but it's not there. That the controller simply sends you know 35 or 40 step outs before trying to read the drive, those kind of things. I just, you know, I find all that interesting, that, you know, how minimal this really is. There's a micro switch over here which looks to me like it's the right protect. Switch feels okay. The upper spindle here is sticky. Feels to me like there's a belt under there, so the belt hasn't deteriorated and failed. You know, it doesn't look to be in too bad a shape. I like the fact that everything's socketed. Nice. So I think I'll pause the video here, get some Q-tips, do a little bit of cleaning, and we'll go through each one of the drives. So I'm back. A couple of Q-tips here. Just do a bit of cleaning on that head. The little felt pad on this one looks okay. I can see that it's starting to wear out. And, a little bit coming off that head, nothing excessive. No, it's pretty dirty down in here. I'm not going to be able to wipe all that out. It kind of is what it is. You can see that, you know, down in the bottom of the drive in there, it's really pretty dirty. It's really just dust. I'm not sure why I'm even attempting to wipe it out of here. The driveway needs to be tore down. But you know, for what that is, inside we've cleaned the head, we've shown that all the pieces move, both boards are there, the motor controller here in the back, and the interface card is here. The cable connectors look okay. So we'll just put this one back together. Cable seems reasonable for the heads. Get the little plastic clips on both sides of the board so that'll snap down on. Really not much more I think I can do without doing a major teardown of this, which at this time I'm not going to do. This needs to go on from this side. I will, at some point, after I verify which drives work, actually tear those down and do a much more thorough cleaning. But for now, I just want to look for burnt electronics, disconnected cables, filthy heads, that kind of stuff. Things that would obviously keep it from working. That way I won't even be tempted to hook it up to the computer when we get to that point. Set this one aside. And we'll grab the next one out of the pile here. This one's obviously a newer drive. It's got the ribbon cable with the copper wrap underneath, the RF shielding there. So it's definitely a newer drive. It's in the apparently what's called the RFI era. I think I talked about the Apple II motherboard I've got that we restored is an RFI era. It's the last generation of the RFI era, which is pretty nice. You know, of course, an original Apple II would be awesome. Hard to find and spendy. So let's go ahead and take a look inside of this guy. Again, really dusty inside. Identical mechanism it looks like. This board looks to be the exact same board. But we'll do the same thing. Get down, make sure the heads move free. Hit the heads with a bit of alcohol. Clean any residual nasty off. Door's a little bit stiff, but that's okay. Again, the heads feel, it feels kind of nasty to me, but they move. Get in here. Definitely a different head. Little felt pad looks intact and okay. Oh yeah, lots of something come off of that head. Whether it's this green felt tip mark, it's this green felt tip marker down here where somebody checked it as good. is what I'm wiping off. So I want to get all of that off of here. Again, this head looks nice and clean. The felt pad's intact. That spindle's nice and loose. I think the bearings might be starting to go there. It makes an odd sound when I turn it backwards. It definitely feels like it's turning back through the motor. Right protect switch is intact. I think at this point it's just going to be the same thing. Put him back together. Apply power and test. I think all the testing I'll be able to do to these is see if they spin up when it tries to access them. Like I say, I don't have any bootable media unless my discs happen to have shown up in the mail today. I read kind of the history of the drives and the drive manufacturer being asked for just, bare drives without all the electronics and stuff, and supposedly being given defective drives, and then WAS came back sometime later and said, perfect, great, these work, we want to do a larger order. And I don't know if that's urban legend or there's truth to it. Don't honestly know. The first floppy drive I ever used on a home PC was on my LNW80, which of course I gave away as I moved on to more capable machines, and I really regret now giving that machine away. It was a build from a blank PCB, ordered out of a magazine, and eventually ended up with the LNW, I think it was an LNW expansion interface and double density and 4 floppy drives and new DOS 80, etc. Really enjoyed that machine, did a lot of work on it, a lot of development, and eventually gave it away like a fool. So we'll call this one filthy but good. On to what is going to be the oldest one here because of the ribbon cable. So it's pre-RFI, so it may actually be all the way back to the Apple II, the original, not the, the Plus, the later machines that dealt with the RFI. Again, I haven't looked at dates on these to date them. It's interesting that there's no information here on the bottom of the case, although that might be typical. There's, of course, the big warning here. It's serial number 32,815. I don't know if they started at drive 1 or if they started at drive 32,000. This one looked really dirty, and it is. This is so far the dirtiest. It's full of cobwebs. I may actually take the vacuum to this after I get the board out, just because it really is full of cobwebs and nasty. Let's go ahead and yank the card out. Pretty much the same board except for this hole here, which is interesting. I'm not sure what that hole is about. Let's see if I can get the edge connector here to release. There it goes. Yeah, it's pretty dirty inside. Head seemed to move okay. Head again looks surprisingly clean. You know, there's no brown where a floppy drive has failed. You know, and scrape the oxide off the felt pad is there. But I'm still going to give it a good scrub down. Oh, I just spilt the alcohol all over the bench. I'm sure you saw that. That's just wonderful, and it soaked Q-tips, which means what I'm trying to use as a dry Q-tip to dry this isn't dry. Oh, crud. Now it really smells like alcohol in here. Always happens. It's inevitable. Oh, I just dumped a bunch of dead solder out of that paper towel. That's lovely. Yeah, such is life. Yeah, I'm gonna hit this with a vacuum and just try to pull some of that up out. The drive mechanism, or the right protect switch, feels okay. I didn't actually try to spin the spindles just to see if anything's really seized. Again, that's stiff, but it rotates. Oh, that's heavy. It's probably okay. Bearings don't feel completely trashed. It's just heavy. You know, with that big flywheel, it is heavy on the back side. So let's just kind of set this all in here. And I'm just going to set this one aside so I can vacuum. And if I can get it to release the ribbon cable. Just to make it easier to manage here. I'll do that just because it'll make it easier to manage when I get down to vacuuming. So we won't be putting him back together at the moment. Set his cover over here with him. Move on to another newer one. You know, it might be a lot of fun to have a Apple II Plus with 4 floppy drives. With 5 drives here, I'm strongly assuming I can get 4 of them operational. Maybe even all 5. This one's already looking fairly dirty inside. Not as bad as I thought. Dead something there. I guess this is getting into a later generation. Just, you know, they got a little more sophisticated with the clip here to keep the cable from being pulled off accidentally. Again, electronics look incredibly similar. Don't see any evidence of destroyed components. I'm assuming when you get the cable on backwards, the 5 volts rail is passed backwards, and ICs will die if you do that to them. Release this. And the little cable. Copyright 78. I haven't actually been looking at the copyright on these. Yeah, 78. No, copyright 78 on the front too, although who knows when it was actually manufactured. It's got some shielding over the head. That's interesting. Looks like that'll just unclip and come off there. Felt pad looks okay. It's not perfect. A little more fresh alcohol. We'll hit the head up here. I actually see a bit of brown on this head. No, maybe not. Looks like it was a little bit of leftover disc oxide on it. Mechanism seems to work. The head positioning seems to work. He's nice and free. This one makes that same noise when you turn it backwards, so maybe that's just a quirk of the mechanism. Soon there's the micro switch up under here, and it clicks well. You know, I will completely tear these down, clean these ribbon cables, really clean these up. It's just not going to happen right now. So, inspection of that one. It looks good to me. Nothing too horribly serious that would keep me from actually attaching it and attempting to use it. You know, if I can, until I get the bootable media, if I can just hook these up and hear the drive spin as it tries to access in the head step, I'll take that as a really good sign. Don't want you wedged under there. A little retainer doodad, which is interesting. I wonder how many drives came into the service center where they had pulled hard enough they had managed to pull that cable off. They decided to add this little plastic clip. There we go. It's clipped on both sides. Cables are back on. You know, for what it is, that's what it is. I need you to go on like this. Oh, missed something. That sucks. Doggone it. It was on there like that. Hopefully this isn't too boring to watch. I know I've kind of slowed down in the commentary. Running out of stuff to say, I guess. This is about got to be a custom little made piece of plastic. I just don't know what else it could be. Heads hook up this way with a head. Yeah, I actually found an online PDF of the ProDOS manual and have read through it. Was actually surprised to see it was a menu-driven system. I'm just so used to being at the command line. It was interesting to read how drives are numbered slot number, comma drive number. So slot 6, comma 1 and 2 would be the first two drives, and then slot 4, 1 and 2 would be the next two drives, or maybe even slot 5, 1 and 2. It was an interesting twist to see how this was actually done. It again speaks to that interesting architecture in the Apple II, where it's just not a bus sitting there with the edge connectors. They're actually each unique. Last drive. This came from the City of Bothell Fire Department. Interesting. All of these have the feet on them. A couple of feet like this one have been shifted a bit, but nothing too drastic. There's a little bit of something's been spilled and kind of collected around there. Don't know what it was. We'll just kind of take the worst of it off. Almost looked like coffee to me. Again, all of this really needs a cleaning. Looks like it's identical to the last one. I don't remember there being there's not a City of Bothell. This one's got a floppy in it. Nice. Utilities and modem. I wonder if that's bootable. That might be really useful here. There is a little divot in the disc where it's set forever with the head kind of pressed in there. I can see it on both sides, which is probably going to make that floppy unusable, but won't know unless we try. It's amazing how easy some of these come off and how much of a battle other ones are. I actually expected these to be in a lot worse shape inside, honestly. You know, opened, abused, etc. And I'm not seeing any evidence really of them being opened and abused in any way. Get this one to unclip. There it is. That head definitely... No, I guess it was just shadow. Little felt pads there. Yeah, a little bit of brown did come off, so it was more than shadow I was seeing there. These heads are typically ceramic, but they do stain. Mechanism seems to move okay for the head positioning. That's there. It's nice and loose. This is the third one with that noise when I spin it backwards, which says to me that's just normal. Something mechanical. Right protect switches there, and I can hear it operate. Heads move. You know, the door mechanism works. What do you think? We just put this one back together. So all 5 of these, I've got no problem hooking them up and see if they operate. I don't see any of these potentially causing damage by being hooked up, which is nice. I looked at the edge connectors on these, and none of them look corroded, which is again nice. You know, it's interesting that the Made in USA has been blacked out there with a marker, getting copyright 78 on everything. Yeah, so I was a little surprised reading the ProDOS user manual. Just, I don't want to call it primitive, just outside of my paradigm. You know, a lot of people used a lot of Apple IIs over a lot of years and loved the machines and you know, did amazing things with them. So who am I to say ProDOS is weird? It's just outside of my experience. Well, why can't I get that? There it goes. See, I couldn't get that to line up. I've got no qualms putting this one back together, as dirty as it is. Like I say, I will do a deep tear down and service and probably just shoot video of me doing one of them. And the ribbon cable could be pulled and cleaned. But that's for a future date. I don't know what the lifespan of these disc 2s were, how many years. they were sold. I remember reading it, but I don't remember details beyond it was a significant amount of time. You know, the internal logic on these is much simpler than on a typical 5 1/4 inch tape drive or floppy drive. It's just interesting how Woz simplified everything down. I met Wozniak once at Vintage Computer Fest in Mountain Home. Got to spend a couple of minutes talking to him. We both own a cathode corner Nextitube watches, and it was kind of like, wow, you've got the same watch I do, kind of thing. I've actually got a photo that maybe I should put up at some point. So, well, interesting. Let's take a second and look through the cards one more time, and I'll end this video and get it uploaded. So this is the floppy controller from eBay with the jumper wires, you know, the solid wire where a trace has been replaced here. I wonder if this one's actually been damaged. There's a jumper wire. I just don't know. That just seems wrong to me. You know, the PCB artwork is different between these, but the layout is the same. Traces are a little thinner on here in places. No, there actually is a difference now that I look. There's a trace running. Get this a little higher and hopefully somewhat in frame. There's a trace running from here to here, and there's a jumper wire running from there to there. This has got this link that comes up to the via here. This doesn't. Another via up here matches the via there, so there's a slight difference in the layout. Wow, whoever replaced that chip did a horrible job. The soldering on here is just horrid. They pushed so hard with the soldering pencil tip, they've scored, I think, the PCB there. I don't really want to put this card in my machine. This may become a parts card just because it's so rough. Very amateurish kind of repair. This card, there's the silk screen actually covers the solder pads for this despiking cap. He soldered from the front side. So this may be a really early run card. These may actually be, these two green wires, factory mods. Obviously the use of the solid copper wire here to replace blown traces isn't. You know, kludge wires like this are pretty common from the factory. There's a pin right there that's not even soldered. You know, and there's zero solder on that pin, and it's just flapping there in the breeze. For the seller to have sold this to me and tell me it's working, it was, quote, tested at one point and all of them were working. I'm not particularly happy about that. Unsoldered pin here. I can get centered under the lens here. Unsoldered pin here, or at least very poorly soldered. Another one right here. I can't get the leads to move, so there is some solder in there. Two really bad solder joints there. I'm really happy I picked up a couple of different cards to compare against. And this is the same trace layout as this one. It differs from that one up here. Doesn't have the via over here. This looks wave soldered to me. It's nice and clean. Very uniform. I see no evidence of manual rework. The solder masks have been opened up here so that that capacitor could solder from the back side, whereas the solder mask on here isn't open. in those two positions. Definitely an earlier set of artwork. Somebody has abused it pulling the cable off and bent the pins. I can straighten those back out. Same here. Really common with these pin headers is that people pull the connectors off incorrectly. Get them way too much of an angle to one side or the other and bend the leads. This has got an Apple 16 sticker on it, or had. I don't really know what that means. We'll set that little sticker aside. Pretty happy with those. I gotta go look up what I read, where there was a name for the board with the larger ROM chip here that said there was something special about it, at least in my memory. That says 1983, copyright on that. 85, so this is definitely later generation. This is 2 years later. Don't know if this is a floppy controller. I'm not really sure what it is. ASCO, Apple. Ah, there it is, Lyron. That's the name I was thinking of. It's a Lyron. And I know I read someplace that it said, you know, look for the Lyron board. It's actually got surface mount under here. The spiking caps, there's a little resistor there, it looks like. Or maybe a diode. I think that's a little resistor. Surface mount to spiking caps. Yeah, these two cards are definitely different. This has got this broad connector on it. This has a much different connector. It's actually a pin header connector. I almost think what I read said this card, the Lyron, can control the, what's it called, profile, the external hard drive. Again, I read a lot, and my memory's not that great, first pass through reading, but it almost seemed like this was the card they said, find it or a clone. So this here may be a real score. It does just say Apple. Oh, 3.5-inch disc floppy controller. That's what it was. The Lyron can control the 3.5-inch 800K drives, I think. That was part of what it was. So, nice little find. Of course, we're back to looking at the Super Serial Card 2s. They're all 381. We've got 670, 020, Rev B, and a Rev A. Actual EEPROM. I think there's an actual no. This one's got an EEPROM. I can feel the window underneath the sticker. So that's an EEPROM. Even though it's labeled 23168, I can feel the UV window under that sticker. I do not feel it under this one. I think I do feel a window there. It's just, yeah, there's a UV window under there as well, I'm pretty sure. So I wonder if those are like pin compatible ROMs. And this one, of course, is the AMI, one of the AMI mass programmable ROMs. At least I'm assuming it's not like a linked ROM where you're blowing links out. This little jumper block's interesting. Oh, it's termination. Terminal. Oh, you flip this the direction you want. Terminal or modem. Okay. That's kind of cool that you can rotate that block. So this one's set to terminal. This one's set to modem. This one's set to modem. That's kind of cool. Well, I'll wrap this up here. This video has already gone on too long. And in one of the next videos, we'll dig a little deeper. Talk to you soon. Bye.